Greetings and welcome to Catching Up with Namhla Ndlovu. It's a real great pleasure having you with us. Coming back from a public holiday, you know how we do it in South Africa. Every other day is a public holiday. It feels like a Monday though. And remember to please send us your comments and your suggestions. We love hearing from you right here on Non-Full Flicks, the home of Black excellent entertainment. Here are your headlines. This is how Cape Town is making it easier for residents to register for the COVID-19 vaccine. And then 27 April is Fake Freedom Day, says Sibuzi Kode. Treat the people living in shacks as human beings. And then Freedom Day reminds Durban activists of how many people died for democracy. Museum offering decolonized history on Cape Heritage launched at Castle of Good Hope. Gauteng motorist arrested for allegedly driving at 203 kilometers in a Gulf. ANC KZN Integrity Commission had nothing to do with 30-day step-aside rule by Samkelo Mtshali. South Africans must welcome the end of Ace Magashule's tenure as ANC Secretary General, says DA leader John Steenhuisen. ANC is sinking into an abyss and 2021 local government elections will be a test. Over billions and billions of rands, the mind-boggling amount Tokyo Sekgwale claims was stolen. Let's take a short break. We will be back with your main stories. Remember to please send us your comments and your views right here on Non-Full Flicks. Your addresses are on the screen, of course. Welcome back. You're watching Catching Up with myself, Namhla Ndlovu, all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much for tuning in. And like I said earlier on, please fill us in and send us your comments and your suggestions and your views, of course, on our social media pages. And now for your main stories. This is how Cape Town is making it easier for residents to register for the COVID vaccine. Persons for who data and connectivity is a barrier to registration can utilize the city's Wi-Fi-enabled public facilities and 55 Wi-Fi-enabled libraries to register on the EVDS using their own devices. According to the City of Cape Town Mayoral Committee member for Community Services and Health, that's Councillor Zahid Badruddin, they are making vaccine registration for elderly residents easier with access to internet connectivity and Wi-Fi. The National Vaccine Registration Portal opened for residents over 60 last week, while the Electronic Vaccine Data System, which is also known as the EVDS, is now open for elderly residents. The city is cognizant of the barriers that exist. Many of our elderly do not have internet-enabled devices, while the registration process may seem to help ensure equitable access to the vaccine. We encourage registration using the city's facilities and especially our libraries, he said. Badruddin said each person registering will require an ID number and a cell phone number where they can receive details of the appointment. Sibuzi Kode, president of the Shack Dwellers movement, Abahlali baseMjondolo, received the prestigious Per Anja Prize from the government of Sweden on Wednesday, the 21st of April, and this is a lightly edited version of his acceptance speech. The price for land, for decent housing and the right to the city is paid in blood. Brutal and unlawful evictions continue to terrorize our communities. No human being should live in substandard housing conditions without access to basic services such as water and sanitization, where there is no road access, where there is no electricity, and when there is no refuse collection. I have dedicated my life to the fight for equal rights for all South Africans, and I am deeply honored and humbled to stand here today and receive this prize, a prize named after a man who bravely resisted fascism and saved many lives. I want to extend my deep gratitude to the jury, the Living History Forum, Swedish Culture, and Minister Amanda Lind, and of course the Africa Groups of Sweden for nominating me. We all know that many of the people of Sweden, as well as their government, gave strong support to people during apartheid. So it is an honor to receive the prize like this from the Swedish government. And then Freedom Day reminds Durban activists of how many people died for democracy. Freedom Day of 1994 for a young Greta Appelgren was a day to be celebrated as the first post-apartheid elections brought in a new era of hope for South Africa. However, it was also a day to reflect on how many people died and had to suffer for democracy. It was a tough day for me because as I voted, I realized everything that had to happen to get me to this day. The first day of elections was the first real day of freedom, but I couldn't stop thinking that so many people died for this, she said. 27 years ago, Appelgren was on duty for 4 days handling the administration at Oosterville Community Hall outside one of the biggest voting stations in a township southeast of Durban. I was young and fighting an economic system that was hurting people psychologically and physically. Born and raised in the community of Wentworth, Appelgren was part of a large family with 11 siblings. Moving on to our next story, museum offering decolonized history on Cape Town heritage launched at Castle of Good Hope. In Cape Town, a new museum has opened its doors at the Castle of Good Hope and is hoping to take South Africans on a journey through a decolonized history of Cape identities. The long-awaited launch of the Kamisa Museum and Center for Restorative Memory followed decades of conceptualization and 3 years of planning. The first phase is the launch of the Kamisa Museum online, a video of the making of the museum, and a mini exhibition as the placeholder for the physical museum that will be established in stages over the next year at the castle. Speaking at the launch, Defence and Military Veterans Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa said, back in December 2016, we made a pledge to transform the image of the castle from a place of armed conquest, apartheid, oppression and banishment into a center of memory, healing and learning. In other words, a space for reflection, reconciliation and nation building. This was against the background of a Defence Council decision to commemorate the 350th year of the Castle of Good Hope that year. This marked a turning point in the history's facility. Gauteng motorist arrested for allegedly driving at 203 kilometers in a Golf. In Johannesburg, a 40-year-old man has been arrested by the Gauteng Traffic Police for high speed for reckless and negligent driving during a special operation conducted on the N4 West towards Rustenburg. The man was arrested on Saturday after he was allegedly caught driving a Golf 7 TSI at an average speed of 203 kilometers in a 120 zone. The Gauteng Community Safety Department said in a statement the man was formally charged for reckless driving at Akaisa Police Station in Pretoria with an alternative charge of exceeding the speed limit. At the time of his release, bail had not been yet confirmed. Moving on to our next story, ANC KZN Integrity Commission had nothing to do with 30-day step-aside rule, says Samkelo Mtshali. In Durban, as the ANC's deadline for leaders charged with corruption and other serious charges draws closer, the party's KZN Provincial Integrity Committee, otherwise known as PIC, on Thursday said it doesn't have anything to do with the 30-day step-aside in 30 days rule. The chairperson of the KZN PIC, Sipho Magwaza, on Thursday said that they had subscribed to a previous resolution saying those implicated should step aside to appear before the Integrity Commission so that the Commission listens to their story and decide upon that. This comes as provincial secretaries of the ANC had to submit lists of those provincial leaders charged with corruption and other serious charges to the office at the Secretary General, Ace Magoshule, as the deadline for them to step aside looms. Magwaza was speaking in relation to the PIC restraining corruption against ANC KZN leaders Mike Mabuya Kulu and Zandile Gumede after they had appeared before the PIC last year. And moving on to our next story, South Africans must welcome the end of Ace Magashule's tenure as ANC Secretary General, says DA leader John Steenhuisen. And in Gqeberha, DA leader John Steenhuisen has urged South Africans to welcome the end of the tenure of ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule, but questioned his party's decision to give him a 30-day period to remain in office. Steenhuisen was speaking at his party's Freedom Day celebrations in Gqeberha's Nelson Mandela Bay region on Tuesday. Today we celebrate 27 years since our very first free and fair election as a democratic nation. Anyone who voted in that election back in '94 can tell you exactly where they were and what they did that day. That moment was so big it made a lasting impression. On the day and for many years after, millions of South Africans were filled with genuine hope for a better future. Putting a cross on that first ballot paper symbolized the freedom that so many had fought and sacrificed for. But I think you will agree with me that the symbolic freedom of 1994 has not yet translated for most people into real economic freedom. The freedom to access opportunities, the freedom to earn a decent wage, the freedom to pursue dreams and ambitious goals, the freedom to raise your children in a better world than the ones you perhaps grew up in. The struggle for democratic freedom may have ended in 1994, but the struggle for economic freedom is still far and from won. For many, it is yet to begin, Steenhuisen said. And then ANC is sinking into an abyss, and 2021 local government elections will be a test. In Pretoria in 1994, when the ANC came into power, the majority of South Africans believed it would deliver on its promises as articulated by the leadership when Nelson Mandela was at the helm. This belief was based on the values exposed by Africa's oldest liberation movement, both in speech and in deeds. Even as that generation of leaders grappled with many challenges, the ANC was united around ensuring that the new era would improve the quality of lives of all citizens. This attitude has kept the ANC in power until now, thanks to the generation of voters who cannot consider any alternatives. Unfortunately, scrolling through news websites, social media, newspaper headlines, radio talk shows and news, it is obvious that the original unity of purpose has vanished from ANC leaders and comrades. Evidently, the ANC choose to ignore how other African liberation movements before it squandered the opportunity to sustain their freedom so that it will benefit its citizens. And moving on to our last story, billions and billions, the mind-boggling amount Tokyo Sexwale claims was stolen. While many believe, including the National Treasury and the Reserve Bank, that the former ANC presidential hopeful Tokyo Sexwale was scammed after he recently came forward with allegations that billions of rands were siphoned from the Heritage Trust Fund, the Hawks are taking the allegations seriously. National Police spokesperson Colonel Katlego Mogale confirmed that investigators had been assigned to investigate 2 cases that had reported at Sandton Police Station. They were working closely with the prosecutors that handled similar allegations in the past. Mogale said that the national head of Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks, Lieutenant General Lebaya, had personally pursued the files and directed closer collaborations on the investigators of 4 matters that requires similar attention. The Hawks shall leave no stone unturned before reaching any conclusion on these matters, she says. According to Sexwale, who called press conference last week, an unnamed oil gauge invested trillions of dollars in the Bank for International Settlements, that's the BIS, in Basel, Switzerland. Unfortunately, that's all we had time for today. Thank you so much for tuning in, and do enjoy the rest of your viewing right here on Non-Full Flicks. Please send us your comments and your suggestions, and remember to tell us who you are and where you are contacting us from. I'll leave it to the rest of my colleagues from all around the world to bring you some more quality entertainment right here on your home of Black excellence. And of course, to my other colleague, I'd just like to say from us here in South Africa, a happy, happy birthday, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Lolo, we love you. God bless. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. I bid thee farewell.